Ow. Ow, okay, that hurt. Holy moly, that took forever to make. I wonder how long it's been. Oh. Oh. Well, that took a long time to make this. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah. Hello there. Welcome back to What is Terraria 2. Before we get started, I suggest watching back onto the first part of the video, which will be linked in the description or right up here. After you watch the first video, let's continue on with this video. So, where were we? Ah yes, we've beaten the wall of flesh now. Now, we're in hard mode. So, first things first, we have to open the treasure bag that the boss had dropped and use the demon heart to gain an extra accessory slot. Now, once you did that, let's go back up to the surface. Alright, so it's either night or day in your world, but it really doesn't matter what time of the day it is. We have to go to your world's evil to do something. Alright, once we arrive to your world's evil, we have to use your pwn hammer if you haven't trashed it on accident. If you did, then proceed to demolish the wall again with the bees. But if you still have your hammer, congratulations! Now let's destroy as many altars as we can. But remember, we always have to leave one altar left for you to use later on. Now, you might be asking, well, why do I need to destroy the altars at my world's evil? That is because it's the next stage of progression where we now unlock hard mode ores. Alright, now let's talk a bit about the new ores that you had just unlocked in the game. Now, there is a total of 6 new ores from the altar that can spawn in. And one of the new ores in the jungle that you cannot mine up just yet. We'll get to that one soon, so don't worry about it just yet. So the new ores that the altar can spawn in are cobalt and palladium ore, which is the ore that you can mine up with your molten pickaxe once it spawns in, and then you have to craft a cobalt or palladium pickaxe or drill. It is totally up to you, it's personal preference. Then, you're able to get to the next tier of ore, which is mithril and orcrium ore. Now, once you get to this ore, you can't just make the pickaxe right away. You have to use a new anvil, which uses mithril or orcrium, depending on which one you get. Now, once you made the new anvil, you can now make the next tier of pickaxes. Now, the last and final ore tier that you could get could be animite or titanium ore. But the one that you might want the most is titanium ore, because the armor set is better than the animite set. Now, before we are able to make the bars for the animite and titanium, we have to upgrade our forge because it's not hot enough to handle the new ores that we just acquired. The way to upgrade the forge is to use either 30 animite ores or titanium ores with the hell forge that we got and crafted at the new anvil that we had just made. Alright, armor sets have changed. You might have noticed that after a few new headpieces had got added into the entirety of hard mode. These are where class-specific sets start to play an effect now, where some headpieces will grant huge buffs to certain weapons when wearing specific headpieces. There are also types of armor sets for different classes which can give more damage, but at the cost of less defense. It's a choice that is given to you and only you can make. Alright, so you might have noticed a bit of the changes that happened to your world. Let's talk that out a bit. One of the major new things that hard mode adds is a new biome, which is called the Hallowed biome. Now, the Hallowed biome is a pink-like fantasy-like biome, with fairies, unicorns, and these hellish nightmares during the nights, which are called gastropods. You might have also noticed that there are new enemies that spawn during nightfall, or in specific biomes, like the mummy that spawns in the desert, or possessed armors, werewolves. Werewolves only spawn in during full moons, obviously. Wandering eyes, wraiths, and much, much, much more. Now, you might have not noticed it at first, but once hard mode starts, your world evil and the hallowed biome will begin to spread throughout your world and the underground, which will spread very quickly if you leave it unchecked. Now, no worries, there are ways to prevent the biomes from spreading too quickly. One of the ways are digging a 3 or 4 wide hole in the ground with the underground walls removed, like dirt walls. I say this because the walls can in fact spread the biome. Now, there's another one, or should I say item, that can clean your world. It's called the Contaminator, which you can put ammo of your choice into it and spray fluids, I should say, onto biomes or your world, which will change the biome that is present. Now, I won't let you worry about it now because it's an item that you can only get later on. And I'll say this, you might want to save a lot of money if you want to get this cleaning device. Now, you might have explored the underground, hallowed, or your world's evil underground sections, and notice this. This is called a soul. There's quite a few of them in the game, but some of them are dropped from bosses, which I'll get to soon, but these are the ones that are unlocked at the start of hard mode. The Souls of Light is only dropped by enemies that are located in the underground hallowed biome, which are dropped by enemies that are pink or located in the hallowed biome. The next soul that is unlocked is the Souls of Night, which are dropped by your world's evil. From what I've noticed, it's mostly dropped by those that are from the world's evil biome, but I have gotten some where it's not from that biome, which is normal. Now, the Souls of Light and Night is normally used to craft some really powerful early mode, hard mode weapons for certain classes. An example is the Onyx Blaster. It uses Souls of Night and is really easy to get early on, but it's meant for the Ranger class. Another one is the Skyfractor, which is meant for the Mage class or the Magic build, which uses Souls of Light. These two weapons are some of the few weapons that you can get early on depending on which class that you divert. The next soul is a soul that you are going to need to get, which is the Souls of Light, which allows you to gain the additions of wings, which is really necessary for hard mode. And there's quite a few wings that you can get at the start that are good, but not the best. Some of them are angel wings, demon wings, fairy wings, fish wings, and leaf wings. The angel and demon wings take Souls of Light and Night to make. Fairy wings take 100 fairy dust. Fish wings are given by the angler after a quest, and leaf wings can be bought during night by the witch doctor at the cost of 75 gold coins. Now, before I forget, I would suggest building a 30 wide by 15 down hole and fill it with one thin layer of lava. I say this because it'll help you cheese wave-based events and new events that will happen. Now, 2 on which will spawn naturally, and 2 on which you summon in. I'll only tell you 1 for now, and I'll explain the rest later on. So, one of them is the pirate event, which is basically the goblin army, but harder, but it tends to give you a higher amount of gold, well, a higher amount of coins, I should say. In the event, you can summon this one in can get it from the summon from the ocean by killing ocean biome enemies. Now, once you win the pirate event, you'll get the pirate NPC. Okay. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about how to progress to the end game. Okay. So, you know those arenas that I said in the first video that you should build? Okay. So, you should probably start expanding the arenas a bit, since now the bosses are bigger and faster than the ones that you just fought in early game. I would suggest making the arenas longer. Like, much longer. I say this because you'll run out of room fighting the new boss in hard mode. Okay, once you finish improving your arenas, let's talk about the bosses that you'll be fighting. These new bosses that you'll be fighting are quite interesting and a bit unique in some cases. So one of the new bosses that got recently added is Queen Slime. Now, this boss is optional. You don't have to fight this boss. The choice is up to you. So, Queen Slime is somewhat similar to King Slime, but it has a second phase where she'll begin to fly around and stomp on you. Queen Slime also spawns projectiles that will explode into mini shards, or has a chance into spawning into mini slimes that will shoot projectiles that will deal moderate amounts of damage to you if not dealt with quickly. Besides, the Queen Slime is meant as an early hard mode boss that you can fight. But, like I said, this boss is optional if you want to fight her. So if you want to fight her, you have to go to the underground hollowed and find this odd-shaped crystal, which is called the gelatin crystal. Note, these crystals will spawn in naturally, so you will not ever run out of spawners. Alright, so let's talk about the main bosses. Alright, so there's actually 3 main bosses that you have to do to progress through the game. They are the mechanical bosses. They are the Twins, the Destroyer, and Skeletron Prime. Now, there are things that people claim on how the bosses should be fight, like it should be fought Prime, Twins, and Destroyer, or Destroyer, Twins, and Prime. Sometimes you can bend the rules on this, but it really doesn't matter on how you fight them, because they'll all progress through the same. Alright, but first, let's talk about them in order. The Twins are basically the eyes, but 2. One of them shoots a laser, and the other one shoots a green fire. Once they stop attacking with their attacks, they'll end up charging towards you and then proceed to attack again. They also have a second phase to their attacks, which gets deadlier than the first phase. You will notice this by them spinning around rapidly and changing mechanical, hence the mechanical bosses. The laser one will now shoot faster during its second phase instead of charging towards you, and the green one that shoots fire will spit fire in a straight line instead of projectiles, and once it finishes its fire attack, it'll do a full blow charge at you once it finishes their attack. Next up is the Destroyer. The Destroyer is just basically the Eater of Worlds but metal, with a gimmick. If you shoot the segments of the worm, the mechanical worm, the worm will spawn in probes that will chase you and shoots lasers. Speaking of lasers, the boss shoots them on each segment that is glowing. Like, you see this on the boss? If these are glowing red, they will start shooting lasers, so I'd get used to the barrage of lasers that will be everywhere on your screen, which will be very difficult to dodge all of them. Plus, the probes chasing you around will shoot lasers as well. But, worry not, there's a bunch of multiple ways to cheese this boss, so this boss really isn't the hardest out of the bunch. Skeletron Prime is basically Skeletron, but with 2 extra arms that deal more damage. Nothing really changes from this boss except the arms are a bit different. Some arms have certain abilities. One of them shoots a laser, another one shoots bombs, another one is a saw that deals more damage than the normal arm. This boss is obviously similar to Skeletron because it technically uses the same AI as the boss. So the same strategy applies to Skeletron Prime when fighting him. Alright, so you beat all of the mechanical bosses, which is nice. And you got these things. Well, they're souls obviously, but these ones are boss drops only, which makes them the next tier of items that we need to progress. And you probably got in a few bars from these boss bags or drops, which are hallowed bars that upgrades your armor set and pickaxe set. But before you go rushing to make the new pickaxe after one boss is beaten, there's a problem with that. You need to kill all of them to actually craft the next pickaxe tier or drill tier. I say this because it requires you to kill all of them to get all their souls to craft the next pickaxe or drill. For the armor, you can get really easy right away after beating one boss over and over again. So, the souls can be crafted into these exclusive items for these classes. Souls of Sight can craft the Optic Staff, Magic Harp, and Rainbow Rod. Souls of Fright can craft the Flamethrower and the Naughty Crescent, and the Souls of Might crafts the Mega Shark and Light Disc. The Hallowed Bar can also give you some really good armor sets that can last up to endgame because of its full set buff that it gives you when you have it all equipped. The buff is a one-hit free immunity every 30 seconds or so after striking an enemy. Now, this is a really good armor set because it can basically say this. If you're about to get hit by a boulder or a really high damage attack with this buff active, it will negate the damage and all together, including the knockback and the debuffs from the attack. Okay, so when you beat all the mechanical bosses, you'll get this message at the bottom left stating that the jungle is growing restless. This will indicate that the next boss is ready to be spawned in the jungle, and hopefully you have that arena build from earlier before, or you could have just used the Queen's Peace spawn arena again. Before you go rushing to the jungle to fight the boss, you might have to wait 3 in-game days for the boss summon to actually spawn in, because it's a plant that naturally spawns in. So you do have to do some time digging up the arena or collect the new ores in the jungle, which are called chlorophyte ore. Now, this new ore is very useful to melee classes because it offers a new armor type to them that is called the turtle armor, which has really high defense, but you're more likely to get targeted by enemies. Don't bother getting a pickaxe or drill from this ore because it's not the best one to get. Now, bullets and arrows on the other hand, for the rangers, this ammo type is the best that you can get for the meantime, because the bullets will home in onto enemies and the arrows will bounce multiple times before breaking. Mages also get a weapons from this ore as well, but it's not a good weapon because it's just the poison staff that's just upgraded that can pierce multiple enemies. This weapon's okay to get in this position because it can penetrate multiple enemies, like I said, but it's not the best. Now, the armor set for the chlorophyte is optional to you. I personally would stick to the hallowed because of the one-hit free immunity every 30 seconds or so to allow me to dodge. 3 days later, and the boss summon should be in, or the Planetara bulb has now spawned in. So, where can I find this bulb? Well, you can find the bulb in the underground and the caverns in the jungle only. According to the wiki, the bulb spawns in somewhat of a grid-like pattern, which I didn't even know about. I'll show you. You see? All the pink circles are locations where the Planetara bulb had spawned in. and located after a while. They are all located in a grid-like pattern, even with artificial jungles. By artificial, I mean jungle biomes that are not meant to be in certain areas that was player made. You might see these few artificial biomes later on. So once you find the bulb, make sure it's close enough for you to move the boss into the arena to fight her when you are ready. So once you dig up the bulb and move Planter to fight her, let's explain her attack patterns. The first thing that you'll notice about Planter is that she'll constantly charge towards you, or should I say progressively move towards you. The next attack you'll encounter is her spitting pellets at you, which has a 25% chance of the pellets inflicting a poison debuff. Planter also fires Thorn's balls 10% of the time and bounce around for a short period. Planter also has a second form once he drops under half of health and lets out a few tiny mouths to protect herself and attack the players with the tiny mouths. Once you get rid of the tiny mouths, they won't regrow back. Now, there's a new attack that got introduced during her second phase, which is shooting spores every few seconds. But the spores can be destroyed in one hit, so the spores are really not as a serious threat as needed. Now, there's also an easy way to beat Plantera, and that is to destroy the walls in the jungle, like mud walls and flower walls. Plantera can only move by grabbing walls or blocks, so getting rid of them will hinder the plants from moving as much as needed. There's also another trick as well by just going in an oval shape or U-shaped pattern because of how slow Plantera moves in her first phase, but during her second phase, an oval shape movement is recommended. So, the plant is dead, and you got this message. Screams are echoing from the dungeon. That is because the dungeon has been upgraded to hard mode, and the jungle temple is ready to be opened with your temple key that you collected from Plantera. So, let's talk about the dungeon. The dungeon now has new enemies that is helpful to mages, rangers, and melees. So, for mages, you gotta kill dungeon spirits to get ectoplasm to craft near endgame armor, which can give you 2 types of the same armor set, which can give you 40% healing while attacking, or deals magical damage if enemies get way too close to you. To get this armor, you need chlorophyte bars and ectoplasm, and crafted at the Mithril Anvil, or Oakium Anvil. For rangers, you have to go to the dungeon and kill specific skeletons, which are sniper skeletons, tactical skeletons, and commando skeletons. Sniper skeletons drop a sniper rifle and sniper scope. The tactical skeleton will drop a tactical shotgun, which is automatic, and the commando skeleton, which drops a rocket launcher. Now, the armor set for the ranger in this tier is Shroomite armor, which takes chlorophyte bars and glowing mushrooms at an auto hammer, which is bought by the truffle in an above ground mushroom biome. To get this mushroom biome, you'll need a lot of mud blocks and mushroom grass seeds. And then you can make this biome anywhere you want. Melee, you're gonna have a fun time with this. You gotta kill one of the few hardest enemies in the dungeon, the Paddlin. Now, the Paddlin can drop a Paddlin shield, which 25% of the damage done to the players on your team you will absorb it when you have over 25% life. But it crafts into a really high defense build, which can give 10% defense, but the actual shield can give 6 defense. The next item that is dropped from the Paddlin is its hammer, which is very strong and has high knockback. So if I were you, I would go here first before fighting the next boss. Alright then, so once you collect your new gear from the dungeon and Plantera, you should have gotten this item called the Jungle Key, which unlocks this place called the Temple, where you will fight the next boss. which will be located at the bottom throughout all these death traps and lizards, and flying versions as well. During your time going down to the bottom of this temple, you should look for chests down here and pick up power cells, which will be very useful once you get to the bottom of the temple. Now, once you reach the bottom of the temple, you'll come across a big open arena, and you'll see this. This is the boss summon. This altar is the base of where you can summon the boss. Remember about those power cells that I said that would be important? That is your boss summon for Golem. Golem is, well, one of the easiest bosses in hard mode, because of how low his health is if you take each segment apart. The hand has a total of 3,400 health, the head has 30,600 health, and the body only has 17,300 health. Plus, when Golem is attacking you with his hands in the first phase, you could just simply say, no! Because you could cancel Golem's hands attack by just simply hitting them, and they'll go right back to his body and then proceed to do the attack again. But there's a catch to this for difficulty changes. During Classic, we'll give the weakest version of him, while Master Mode will make him do more damage if he manages to hit you. Now, let's talk a bit more about his phases. During his first phase, it's pretty simple. Just block his hands and... oh yeah, he jumps around. Note, if you jump high enough, Golem will jump to that height and a bit higher to get to you. But no worries, we're just fighting him for the first time, so he won't be jumping super high like Superman. Now, once Golem starts to get low or loses his first hand, he'll begin shooting fireballs at you slowly until you damage the head enough where the fireballs will become more and more rapid. Now, during the second phase of Golem, his head will detach from his body and the head will become invulnerable. But you can now damage the body like before. Lowering Golem's health, the faster and faster attacks will become. But no worries, his health is compared to as a Paladin for the body portion and the hands. Not really a whole lot to explain about this fight, but I would suggest this. Get campfires and heart lanterns and regen potions, just in case. So, once you've beaten Golem, or should I say beaten up Golem until you got the new pick saw from Golem, and dig up his altar and move it to a preferred location up on the surface. Alright, what was I saying? Oh yeah, you beating up Golem. Alright, now you're ready for endgame. So, we're not completely finished yet with melee. So, once you defeat with Golem, you may either gotten Beetle Husk from the treasure bags or dropped by Golem. That is your next armor set for melee, where it does reduced damage when you have the shell equipped, and the other version of the armor set, the Malice, will increase your damage and melee speed by 10% when doing damage to enemies, and it could go up to 30% when you deal more than 180 damage per second, or DPS. So, this armor set will help you defeat the second to last boss that you have to fight located in the dungeon at the entrance. Alright, so you'll see 4 cult-like people dancing this circle monolith. This is where you'll fight the next boss, which is the Lunatic Cultist. Now, this boss can be really easy if you know how to dodge, but if you don't know how to dodge a whole lot or are not really good at it, this boss might be difficult for you. So, the Lunatic's attacks are in a pattern which will always follow in this order. A burst of 3 fireballs for an expert or higher, and that will home in onto you. An ice mist that will fire 6 shards of ice in 6 different directions, 4 times before going away. Then lightning orbs that will fire 5 bolts of lightning at the character. By that I mean where the player was last located when the lightning bolt was fired. And at half health, the Lunatic Cultist will replace one of its attacks with Ancient Lights, which will shoot out five attacks that look like stars in a cold-like pattern at the player 3 times. If your world is either an expert or master mode, the Lunatic has another attack which can pull out once you reach half health, called Ancient Dooms, in a cross-like pattern with 4 projectiles. The Lunatic will cycle through 5 attacks from the list as I mentioned before doing a ritual. During the ritual, the cultist will stop in place above your head at the last location you were at and disappearing before reappearing with 2 other lookalikes. You will have to find out which one is the real cultist and hit the right one to stop the ritual, and then he'll go back going through his cycles again throughout his 5 attacks. If you fail to hit the right one or take too long to hit the right one in time, a wyvern-like phantom will spawn in and the clones will join the cultists in attacking you. If you fail the ritual again, then the ritual will summon an ancient vision which will come at you in a diagonal line. To get rid of the clones, you'll have to wait for the next ritual and hit the right one next time, and then the clones will despawn. Now, how to easily defeat the cultist? Well, there really isn't a whole lot of ways to beat him besides using hunter potions that'll counter his clones if you want to make it easier. But it's already easy enough because the clones are brighter than the real ones and have a different sprite altogether. Plus, it's the only one with a health bar. Besides that, there really isn't other ways to counter the cultists, but the cultist has a 25 damage reduction on certain range attacks, and some magical attacks are reduced, as well as most summon staffs are reduced on damage when fighting him. Besides that, once you beat the Lunatic Cultist, there will be an event that will be called the Lunar Event, which will spawn in 4 pillars which house endgame items, which means you're going to be fighting the final boss after beating this event. But let's talk about the event. So, like I mentioned before, there is 4 pillars during this event. There's Solar, Vortex, Stardust, and Nebula pillars. I'll get straight to the point for the pillars and tips on how to beat them easily. Because if I go into detail about the pillars, it'll be a while. Solar pillars are meant for the melees, but they're deemed as the hardest pillar to fight, since you can't fly in the solar pillar, otherwise this guy will charge you till the ends of time at really fast speeds. Most of the enemies here will deal lots of damage here, so be on your guard. The Vortex pillar is for the ranged class, and probably the easiest pillar in this event, because you can just simply do this. There's not really much about this pillar to say about this pillar, to be honest. The Stardust pillar is for the summoning class. This pillar is also easy, but can be difficult if it gets out of hand, because some of the enemies here will deal massive amounts of damage to you, but they're really easy to beat. The Nebula pillar is for the mage class. It is also the second hardest pillar to beat because of the enemies here. One of the enemies will deal lots of damage and can teleport when it gets hit, and it will do it quite frequently, and it will get really annoying. Now, once you defeat your class pillar, you can craft endgame items at the Ancient Manipulator that was dropped from the cultist when you defeated him. Make sure you don't delete this item. This item is really important for you to have to craft endgame tier items. If you did, then you have to fight the Lunatic again. But if you didn't, you'll end up using these items to fight the other pillars and the final boss. Alright, now it's time to fight the final boss, Moonlord. Moonlord, when summoning him in, will take a few seconds before he spawns in officially. And during those few seconds, well, use those few seconds, I should say, to prepare before he comes in. But it won't be very long before Moonlord spawns in. So, once Moonlord spawns in, you need to move pretty quickly because Moonlord will attack immediately with a hard-hitting attack onto you. Then, From his mouth, he'll latch a tentacle onto you, which will prevent you from healing and slowly drains you of your life. But this can last up to 14 seconds, and it can replenish his health to Moonlord. But not a lot. Also, Moonlord's hands will shoot out many eyes in all directions, and then homes into the player. Another attack that the eyes can shoot are bolts, which can fire rapidly directly at the player that can pass through blocks. Now, the eye on the head will shoot a deadly death ray, which will take about 3/4, half your health, or it can instant kill you. But the attack will always spawn behind the player and move in the direction that the player is going, which can last about 3 seconds. Once the attack is done, the eye will then fire 2 bolts similar to the hand and close its eye once more. And then it'll fire a tentacle from the mouth, and then it'll repeat the cycle again. Fighting this boss can be really hard and can require patience, and you being really good at dodging attacks, since they deal so much damage. Now, if you were me, I ended up losing my patience and ended up saying, screw it. I ended up saying this is taking too long and use a different character in Journeys mode just to kill Moonlord, just to get this video out. So, Moonlord's defeated and you got the credits, which I congratulate you for beating Terraria. But you're not done yet, because you might have to beat Moonlord again, because you need to get the full armor set, which needs this Luminite ore, which is dropped from Moonlord, which makes the class armor set, and hopefully you get a really good weapon from this treasure bag.